Many of us have government servants at home, and we have government servants, and or we have their widows or their mothers who are getting amazingly big pensions. So I know people who are getting pensions which are about 1,25,000, and they're all about 90 years of age, and that's why the pension has gone up so much, because it doubles at some level, and all those magical things happen. And all these are people who live on 10,000-20,000 rupees, because they're living with their children. They actually have no expenses at all. At some stage, the index pension looks awesome, and especially for older people, suddenly all the younger kids, all of them have a lot of respect for them, and will take a huge amount of care to look after their health, because the pension is something which they get only if they are alive. However, one smart thing which Manmohan Singh did was he did away with this index pension even for the government servant. In the public sector, in the private sector, I don't think anybody has index pension, but I know companies which have pension which they bought out from LIC, which is the superannuation, and one company, which is 2 or 3 companies I think I should know, where if a person has completed 15 years of service, then they have a very decent superannuation plan, and once in a while they top it up also. So somebody who is getting 22,000 rupee pension will suddenly find a 5,000 rupee jump in their pension, because the company would have funded them and increased their pension. Now this is not indexed. This is just given to them ex gratia once in a while when the company has a lot of profits. Now this is just loved by that company too, for its ex-employees. There are some other companies which cover their retired employees for life, for medical. So they may give a 2-3 lakh kind of a medical cover, which is more or less sufficient for one leg operation or a hip operation, or even a knee replacement, or a cataract operation. It covers all those kind of costs. So, but for most of us, we have to make sure that our assets last for the till the end of our life. That's not going to be easy, because the government is going to struggle. Let's say government of US or government of India. Let's talk about government of India. The government of India will not ever be able to reduce the pensions of the armed forces. It is impossible for them to try to touch it, because we know how much of controversy OROP created. Indira Gandhi could get away removing OROP, and then it took a long time. When Narendra Modi came back, OROP was restored. Now I'm not getting into the politics of that, but OROP and continuing to give a benefit plan, pension based on the benefits and not on the basis of their contribution, is not going to be easy. Remember, army salaries, or rather the defense salaries, have gone up dramatically. Now to give them a indexed pension based on that, a defined benefit, not a defined contribution, is going to be very hurtful. So what is going to happen is the government's budget is going to be stretched a lot. First of all of us, including Narendra Modi, have to be thankful that Manmohan Singh at least made sure that the Sarkari Babus are not getting this OROP and index pension, but rest assured they will do something by which they will get back at us. So I can't imagine the Babus living on NPS based pension, so expect some magic to happen there. And the defense pensions. Now what will the government do? If it is a private company, then the answer would be different. But if it's a government, they could print more notes, or they will come with some devious methods of taxing the rich. And rich could mean anybody with assets more than 1 crore is rich, because most of the country is way below that, right? So those are 2-3 things that you have to worry about. I have no clue what the government will do, but I'm convinced that the government will do something because of which the rich and the super rich will be taxed, so that the deficit can be met, and that is scary. I have no clue what they will do. I have no clue how you can protect yourself. The only way you can protect yourself as of now, it looks like, have more assets in more asset classes, in more names. So some assets in your name, some assets in your wife's name, some assets in the name of your HUF. You will need all those tagadambaji which is necessary, because I have no clue that 20 years later, with this kind of the 7th pay commission, 8th pay commission, 9th pay commission and 10th pay commission happening, their pensions will be huge. When the salaries were low, these pensions didn't hurt, but now salaries are high, so pensions will hurt. And like I said, defense pensions will hurt the most, but the government will do something to get back its own pensions. So I think my advice is very simple. Just a second. Be very conservative in your spending. That's the one thing which you can control. Making assets last for a long time is one way, is to cut down on spending rather than hoping to get a higher return on your assets. That may not happen. So cut down on your spending, create more assets. If your IFA tells you that you need 3 crores for your retirement, make sure you have 6 crores, because that will give you far more comfort. Be ready for COVID-like situations. Be ready for lots of periods of negative return or zero return. Hopefully inflation will also be low. So learn to live very frugally. Not that you have to live very frugally, but learn to live very frugally. Right now we've all been forced into a frugal living. We are not going out, we are not eating out, we are not traveling, we are not seeing movies, we are not buying clothes. This is very bad news for the economy. Make no mistake, because the money is not rotating. How will the landlords pay the EMI? I have no clue. It is very easy to say, oh, rent mat baro. Malls are empty. I have no clue what will happen. Now, into all this, if you bring higher taxation, which I am sure the government will within the next 12 months or 24 months, how are you going to handle it if you are a retired person? So if you are not yet retired, live frugally and invest aggressively or save aggressively, because if inflation is high, your debt assets will be wiped out, and if inflation is high, equity will also give good returns. So all the more reason that you should have more money in equity. Keep your head still. Make sure you create a bigger corpus by spending less. I can't think of any other thing which you can do. So real estate should do well in times like this, but what is happening is, a lot of people are leaving bigger cities and going to smaller towns. So a lot of landlords in Bangalore are complaining. A lot of landlords I know in Navi Mumbai, there are a lot of empty flats and flats getting emptier. Boys and girls are going back home and saying, and people who have to retire in say January 2021 are retiring in July 2020 or August 2020 and saying, 4 months if I have to anyway work from home, why not I retire, take my money and still continue to work? And if they are in a different location, for example, a person normally in Chennai but who is working in Mumbai and he has got 4 months to go for retirement, he gives up the Mumbai house. So what happens is there is no more rent in Mumbai. So if the landlord has to receive that rent and pay the EMI, what happens to the landlord? His rental income has gone to zero, but he has to still pay the EMI. The situation is not too great, but if you don't have cash flow problems, continue your SIP. If you have cash flow problems, freeze your SIP, don't do any more SIPs. I have done separate videos on this, so just sit tight, worry about how the government will react to such a panic situation, and more importantly, how the Babu will react to a panic situation like this, and then see how you can protect your assets. Equity is under threat, debt is under threat, real estate is under threat. So the only thing which you can control is your expenses. Make sure that you have adequate medical insurance. Make sure that you have adequate term life insurance if you have children who are dependent on you. And make sure you're spending very conservatively so that you can live on the same amount of corpus but for a longer period of time. Thank you.